show where conversations are real. My name remains Kike Atanda-owo, and I've got my co-host, my beautiful co-host, Lord, and of course, our husband in the building. Marshall in the building. So when people tell me I don't have partner, I say, "Shoo,
I've got a partner."
A lot of people actually think it's all girls, but I said we got a man.
Yeah.
We got a man.
How you guys doing? It's Eid Mubarak, and there's celebration in the air today. And of course, I know that you guys are in the spirit because you're represented right now.
Yeah. I'm saying Ramadan Kareem to all our Muslim brothers and sisters. We thank God for the successful completion of the holy month of Ramadan. I pray that all your supplications to Almighty Allah sees answers, because we really need answers to things in Nigeria presently. Trust me.
Well said.
Is it my turn to talk?
You're saying I'm transporting you to some plane.
I just like the way you're looking like one Binta Balaribi, you know.
Maybe an allergy is coming.
She's looking like Zainab Mohammed, you know. And someone is saying I'm looking like one Mustafa. Well, hi guys, welcome to our Eid Mubarak episode of the RTWK show, Real Talk with Kike here. Welcome, my name is Marshall Anthony Onoya.
All right, I think I want to use this medium. You know, most times when it's time for Ramadan, when it's time for Eid Mubarak and the likes, you know, it makes me remember my late mother, the one who trained me. You know, that if she was alive, basically, you know, we'll be celebrating, or there'll be a gathering, a feast at our home. You know, it makes me just want to, how I wish she's alive today. How I wish that, you know, I could celebrate her more than I do today. Yes, quite a number of people are not aware that the reason why I created the foundation was basically because of my...
In memory of your grandmother.
Yes, memory of my great grandmother. And I battled with the name. Should I call it Kike Foundation? Should I call it Kike Foundation? After many deliberations, I just said, okay, you know what? For consistency and unity, let me just still put my name, but she is the main reason why that foundation was created. Yeah.
Wow. Pray she continues to
Rest in the bosom of the Almighty.
Amen. All right, let's quickly go on a quick break, and when we return, we're going to the main discussion of the day. Please stay with us. Welcome back. For those who are for those who are not familiar with our program, or for those who are also familiar with our program, you will notice that there's a slight change in wearing her glasses. And my lovely sister is in solidarity with me. Isn't it good to have a beautiful sister? No, I love you. All right, guys.
So in case she's saying that, in case she doesn't read well.
In case I cannot see well.
Forgive.
All right, Real Talk with Kike comes with a double dose today. First, we'll be speaking with Ajia Wuraola Young on the topic of Eid Fitri, the lessons of Ramadan, and she is the founder of Sisters in Business Leadership Network. Hello, are you there, Wuraola?
Yes, I am here, but I can't really get you very well. Okay. But I heard my name, Shan.
What they call it? Baraka di Salah, right? Is that how they say it? After the Eid Fitri?
Yes.
All right.
Baraka di Salah.
So, Wuraola, can you hear us? Or we've lost her? All right. So why does?
Say that again.
All right. So Wuraola, my first question to you is that what does Eid Fitri mean to all Muslims out there? Did you
Sorry?
What does Eid Fitri? What does it mean to Muslims?
All right. Okay. So, alhamdulillah, thank you guys for having me on. One of the two major celebrations Muslims have every year. And the Eid al-Fitr is the one that comes after the Ramadan period. Ramadan is the 9th month of the Muslim calendar, which is the lunar calendar. And it's a celebration we do to mark the end of 29 or 30 days of fasting from dawn to dusk. So that's what Eid al-Fitr is. The celebration of the end of Ramadan, literally.
So I know that a lot of people consider it a holy month, but one of the experiences I've had is a lot of people would, abstain from certain things that are considered sin or ungodly during Ramadan. But immediately after the Ramadan fasting, you see people going straight back into the lives that they live. Is it that that's just what is expected of them by Almighty Allah, and once they're done with that purification period, they can go right back to the living, to their daily living? Or how does that
But they can go back to sin.
To sin, so to say.
You guys are also laughing because you kind of know the answer. So to put it simply, to backtrack a little bit, Ramadan is a period where even the things that God has allowed, within a window of time during every single day of those fasting days, he says you abstain from it. So we can eat and we can drink, right? But God says to Muslims, from dawn to dusk, you do not eat or drink. So if for 30 days you can stay away from what is permissible, and on top of that, you stay away from what is impermissible, because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever for you to deny yourself food and drink all day. And remember, here in Nigeria, we can break at 7 or thereabouts when the sun goes down. There's a place in the world where they don't break until 9:30 in the night. So if you can stay away from things that are okay for you to, have on a good day, and on top of it, you're staying away from all the sins that we all know, it's kind of a training ground. It is a training ground to show us that outside Ramadan, you can do this. You can stay away from sin if you choose. So to answer your question, no, it is not for us to go back to the same old ways of behavior before Ramadan. As a matter of fact, anybody that finds it so easy that today being the first day after our fast, and you're already down with all the bad habits you had before Ramadan, you should check whether that your Ramadan is standing, because it means that you just exercised restraints for nothing for 30 days, because that means the benefit did not seep through your being, your heart and your soul. Because it's not about the tummy being empty and not being fed. It is about your soul really getting that training that you can do the right thing even when it is hard. Because if you don't eat and drink and it's not easy, then surely you can do away with the things, whatever the kind of thing anybody can come up with. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
Okay, for me, I'd like to find an understanding across the different Salah celebrations we have in the course of the year. I know we have Eid Mubarak, we have Eid al-Fitr, we have Eid al-Adha, or you correct me if I'm wrong. So I'd like to know what is the difference, or what are the differences between or amongst these Eids?
Okay, so you mentioned Eid Mubarak in between that, and Eid Mubarak literally means the blessings of Eid. So when you say Eid Mubarak to somebody, you're just telling them, praying for them that they get the barakah, the blessings that comes with this celebration, right? So that's a greeting. So Eid al-Fitr is the celebration, as I said earlier, of commemorating our successful completion of the fast. And then the Eid al-Adha, or the big Salah, or Eid Kabir, is the one we do to commemorate when Father Abraham, father of all faiths, was tested by God to sacrifice his son. And he was going to, out of obedience to God, but, God told him not to anymore. And then a ram was replaced for his son. So we do that commemoration as remembering that there was a human on this earth who was ready to sacrifice ultimate price. I think it may have been easier to tell him himself to sacrifice himself than to actually be the one to give up his son. So that was like an ultimate sense of obedience to God, and we hold that in high regard. And it's a reminder to us as Muslims that you really need to subdue your ego to whatever God wants. So that's the difference between the two major celebrations we have every year as Muslims.
All right, many thanks, Haja Wurala Young, for emphasizing on the lessons of Ramadan, and of course for sharing part of your time with us this lunch hour. For those who
My
are just
pleasure.
joining us, if you've not missed so much, all you have to do is to join the conversation by calling the studio number 080-988-77400, and it's showing on your screen right now, I believe. We just had a beautiful conversation with our first guest on the lessons of Ramadan and what it means even after Ramadan for most people to actually continue the holiness or the good character that they have portrayed during that period. All right, so now it's time for us to connect with our second guest onto this show. I'm so excited to be on this same platform with her. But first thing first, let's take a quick look at her profile. We'll be right back.
On this day in history, 13th of May in 1991, exactly 20 years ago, Winnie Mandikizela Mandela, former African National Congress Women League president and Deputy Minister of Arts and Culture, was found guilty on 4 charges of kidnapping and 4 of being an accessory after the fact to assault. Co-accused John Morgan was found guilty of kidnapping and Oliswa Falati guilty of kidnapping and of assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm. The case arose from the fact that one of the kidnapped youth, Stumpy Seipe, had been found dead from his injuries near the crime scene. The sentencing was scheduled for 14th of May 1991. The actual crime had allegedly been committed by her thuggish bodyguards dubbed the Mandela United Football Club. In 1997, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, TRC, reached a verdict that Madikizela Mandela was guilty and had played a role in the killing of Stumpy Seipe.
All right, welcome back on this day in history. Quickly, Masha, what's your submission before we go straight into
yeah, okay, so my submission will be the fact that Winnie Mandela was sentenced for that and then it was reduced to fine. Yes, I like the fact that at a time when she was well celebrated in South Africa, the law took its course. The judge stood their ground and then they delivered that sentence. Yeah, I'd love to say more, but I guess we have to go straight into our discussion with our guests.
I think that's one of the reasons why Mandela actually also divorced her and all of that. But well, we don't have much time because we need to dive into the business of the day. And doing business is not an easy task in Nigeria. Let me say that there's no ease of doing business in Nigeria. And doing business with others isn't also a walk in the park. But how does doing business with one spouse feels like, oh, okay, we're doing good? Our guest is someone who co-founded a company in 1994 with her husband. Over the years, she has coached many couples who have gone ahead to start businesses together. But please welcome Mrs. Audrey, right? Audrey Joe-Ezigbo. Welcome again to be on the show with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I always mother people's name and I apologize.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I've heard many different versions of my name, I promise you.
Many thanks for your understanding. So I think my first question to you, let's just dive into the topic at hand, is that there are many, scars to start with in terms of joint spouse businesses, and that ranges from trust to maybe trust issues to sometimes investments, sometimes shares of inheritance, and the like. So how does these barriers crossed in starting up such businesses, especially in Nigeria where we have our own culture?
Well, let me put it like this. When we talk about spouses working together, there are so many different ways that people get into that kind of a relationship. Sometimes it's that they actually decided, let's do this together, as was the case with myself and my husband. Or many times it is that the wife has been running a business, the husband loses his job, and then, let's join madam, or vice versa. Or in some cases, I know I have a couple on my community recently where the husband was running a business, the wife was running a business, and then they just decided that their combined skills made for a better synergy for the family. Now, fundamentally, when you begin to talk about issues about the barriers, you're very right. Trust is key. Trust is critical because when you begin to work with your spouse, you're going to be spending literally 24 hours practically with each other. You're going to see each other in the workspace. And of course, you know that in the workspace, you're exposed to watching your spouse now interfacing with the opposite sex consistently. And you have to know that this is business, this is workplace, and then this is private relationship. Now, culturally too, there are issues that create problems because traditionally, and even if we look at it from a religious standpoint, the man is the head of the home. The man is the leader. But quite frankly, when it comes to business, it could be that the woman has the competencies that you need to drive the business. And so sometimes you see, because the man is the man, he is the CEO, whereas he doesn't have what it takes to lead the business, the woman does. And that not only creates problems for the business, it creates problems for the relationships, and so on. So it's a very difficult terrain, but there are some principles that just help you to navigate it successfully. You know, I've been working with my husband now for almost 27 years next month. And so it was on the basis of being able to successfully navigate home and office that I decided, you know, a few years ago, I wrote my book about it. And I also run a community where I do trainings for couples that work together just to help them to succeed on the home front as well as, you know, on the business front, keeping those barriers in view and looking at what the success principles for that would be. Yeah.
Wow.
Fantastic.
You said it so simply, like, wow, it's a walk in the park.
No, certainly not.
I have a legal background, and I know that one of the most difficult systems of business is partnerships. Even partnerships among people that are not spouses are very difficult to put together. Not to talk of a spousal relationship in business. Some will say don't mix business and pleasure together. So when your differences are so wide, you're totally different people. And you said somebody can be better at business than the other. How do you find this balance that it does not disrupt the home? I have experiences of couples that actually started a business together, and that's what cracked the home.
Yes, you're so right. Certainly. So this is one of the things that I teach. One, fundamentally, if your relationship is flawed, if you don't have good communication, if you have trust issues, if you don't know how, if you're not friends, don't even go there. That's a recipe for disaster. And I always say that it is possible for you to decide not to work together anymore and preserve your marriage. But the minute you destroy your marriage, forget about the business, it's not going to work. So let me take you on the issue of partnerships. When we're talking about couples that work in business together, it's not so much about partnerships as much as it is about equity ownership in the business. All right? And when you think about any other business, when you get into that kind of equity investment relationship with anybody, there are no guarantees as to how that plays out. Everyone comes with their different skills, their different value systems, their different outlooks. But as friends, if you were friends or just professional colleagues, you find a way to begin to bring alignment into your outlook for the business, for instance. Now, as couples, we should ideally have some kind of outlook and vision for our families. When you put those both on the table and then you ask yourself, at every instance, what's the win for my family in this situation? What's the win for my business in this situation? Why would you be quarreling about some kind of strategic initiative in the office and then you come home and you're not talking to each other? It makes absolutely no sense. So one of the strategies for success is literally drawing the lines and saying to yourselves, if Kike Lomo was not my wife, how should I behave around her? And vice versa, right? Because we're professionals in the office. But whether you like it or not, because we're in the office so much, there is a tendency that becomes the most familiar aspect of us. Therefore, we also very actively have to nurture the home. What are the things we're going to do to keep us in that loving, excited, you know, friendly relationship with each other at home? It's work. It doesn't happen simply, but partnerships are not simple either. All right, so it's really, I think fundamentally for me, is keep it professional in the office. And then when you get home, make sure you nurture it. And then probably find, it makes sense to have like some kind of mentor. When things get tough, you should have someone that you can go to. And preferably somebody who has walked the journey before. I always say that when you go to regular trainings, people can teach you strategy, they can teach you marketing, they can teach you negotiation, they can teach you everything about business. But teaching you about business with your spouse, now that's another kettle of fish.
It is.
I can very well agree with you. I, for one, is I'm in several businesses with my spouse, but I want to come from the angle where you started off in answering Lolo's question. You did say that if you get it wrong in the home, or if you spoil the relationship or marriage or something of that sort, forget the business. Are you saying that in your practice of counseling and guiding, and also mentoring couples that are into business together, you've not come across couples who part ways marriage-wise and still run a very strong and formidable partnership in their business, like we have in
Melinda Gates and
Yeah, I kind of suspect that was over long before they announced it. So yeah, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I even have one, not here though, out of this country, and they worked together for a long time after the marriage packed up. But that takes, first of all, that you have created that professional framework. Two, that takes that you are both equity investors in the business. And if you've built the business to a certain level, you don't just walk away because you quarreled with Madam or you quarreled with Oga. No, business is business. And this is the problem, that we don't realize business is business. Business is not an extension of your home. When you work with your spouse, you have to get that right. So now it is possible, if you maintain that, and depending on what broke you up, when there are very sensitive issues at play that you can't even see each other, which is the case in...
What broke them up? I'm not broken up.
My brother,
yes.
Thank you very much. What broke them up, right? Yeah. So sometimes when the issues are so sensitive that on a good day, the spouses can't even look each other in the face without getting... Balance. Yes. But there are many people who have broken up and maintained a good rapport with each other, even if it's for the children, or because, hey, we just both messed up, so let's not kill each other. Those kind of people can still decide, okay, how do we make it work in the business we started and we've grown together? Because perhaps us stepping away will be stealing some key skills or intellectual capital from the business that may then affect it. And I'm not saying the business will shut down, no. I'm just saying that the work relationship might be impacted. But it's very rare, because by the time people get into breaking up at home, it tends to be mostly nasty, right? So which is why when you work with your spouse, I really encourage you, nurture your private, your personal relationship more than you nurture the business one.
They're very well said, man. You know, and talking about encouragement, involvement, I know that according to Family Business Survey report, it says that what's it called? It shows that a decent 53 family businesses, joint family businesses, have experienced growth, and they've done pretty well in 2018. However, what does this speak for other people in terms of involvement and in terms of encouragement for family businesses, for those who are still struggling to find a balance between themselves?
Right. So I would say, I mean, those are great numbers. And when you dimension them against our realities in Nigeria, I want to speak to our context. I personally feel that we need to see more spouses come to the table. We have a huge unemployment crisis, over 33%, youth unemployment 42.1% or thereabouts. Yes. We need to build businesses that can take on our youths. Not everything is not about government. You and I have the potential to transform this country.
Absolutely.
Now, many couples are impacted by what's been going on from the economic recessions, take it from 2014 till date. All we've seen is people throwing out people into the unemployment market by their hundreds. Many times, okay, you were sacked by this person, sacked by X bank, the other one sacked by X oil company, and both of them are unemployed. It makes sense. Bring your experiences, bring them all together, start something. However, based on what you've said now in terms of how do we leverage this to build bigger businesses, it's a function of professionalism, and it's a function of structure, and it's a function of institutionalization of your businesses. One of the things that, right from the conceptualization of my business, my husband and I, we said, we're not building a mom and pop store. We benchmarked, we're in the oil and gas sector. We looked at the huge family businesses, not just in oil and gas. We looked at Coca-Cola, we looked at Mercedes-Benz, and we asked ourselves, how could these businesses that started with one man and his wife, one man and his daughter, still be here hundreds of years later? It's about structure. It's about depersonalizing it. It's about looking for best practices, putting your processes, your policies in place, And knowing that you can't just run the business on the fly. You wake up this morning, you do it like this, the next morning you do it like that. And you fit into the bucket of the proverbial one-man business. You quarrel with your wife, you come to the office, you sack the first person that didn't greet you well. You quarrel with your husband, his secretary smiles at him. No, those silly things that have no place in the corporate world. So really, it's about us stepping up to the table to decide, first and foremost, whether you work with your business, with your spouse or not. I personally want to see more professionally run firms in the country that are positioning to build institutions that can take territory across Africa.
All right, many thanks for that. You know, she's been talking about acting of professionalism, but it's important for us to take a quick look at the profile. Please stay with us. All right, welcome back. I'm very sure that, you know, listening or watching her profile, you cannot help but just keep admiring her. And like Lolo said, she's got it put together, very resounding profile. And I think this takes me to my next question, because I know that we've been talking about acting of professionalism, how people have to separate their personal lives from their professional life. And according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, it said 77% of businesses owned by spouses in Nigeria plan to pass on the management what's it called, role, so to speak. I think 10%. I stand to be corrected because I'm in front of a certified person and all of that. So businesses have documented quite a number of challenges in this area. So my next question is, how can we find a balance with all we've said and put everything into practice? Because regardless of how we can say that, okay, you have to separate your personal life with your spouse, sometimes it's a challenge. What will you advise people to go for training regarding that?
Okay, so I want to touch on something you said very quickly before coming to this question, and that is the conversation around the institutionalization. It's actually not hard to do. It's just for us to open ourselves to the reality that this is an imperative. Okay? Whatever you admire and aspire to, you must be willing to do the work to put in place. So that's what is lacking. You know, we get comfortable many times with the substandard. So when I started my business, I used to hear things like, oh, your own is too much. Where this prosperity, this is your small company. But, you know, you benchmark against the best and you keep pressing. And we need to see more people come to that place. Now, in terms of the relationship and whether you need training, I would say yes, many times, because it's really difficult space. You know, that I've done it for 27 years doesn't mean it has been seamless, and I'm always very real about that. I'm always real about the fact that it comes with its own sets of challenges. However, there are some strategies to deal with it, and those strategies are not separate from building the institution. All right? So when your whole business is about you, yourself, your husband, right, it's a big problem because it's only two of you, and then when you're not working, the business is not working. When you get competent people to partner with you, when you put policies in place, when you put structures in place, and you force yourself to abide by them.
So the structures, man, that you're talking about, apologies that I have to interrupt you, so is the essence of the legal documentation where spouses have to come together to have a succession plan regardless of their differences.
Right, so it's not just, I mean, there are many things, really. The structure is not just about the legal. It's about your internal policies. Who reports to who? For instance, between you and your spouse, what did you bring to the table? So what are your competencies? What should you be responsible for? The organogram, the reporting lines, what is each department responsible to do? How are the communication lines flowing? Do you even have those documented? So if Lolo leaves the show today and somebody has to come and take her work, do you have a manual where even if that person is a novice, as long as they say, I'm supposed to do this one first, do this one next, they can function, and the organization doesn't feel that, you know, gap too much.
So that's power beyond one.
That's the issue of the structure. Now, when it comes to the legal agreements, yes, that's also key. So you don't just say that because I work with my spouse, we don't put things in place. You must have your shareholders agreements in place. Those also speak to what you can and cannot do. You must have a board, preferably a very seasoned board, in place. You have a good board charter that spells out what your board can and cannot do. And I will advise, put people on your board that you can answer to. Not just have a board for having sake. Now, the last thing which I will say, and that's on this issue of succession. Many times when, as indigenous entrepreneurs, when we talk of succession, all people are thinking of is my children will inherit the company. And that is a failure mindset from the beginning. Many people don't realize this. It's a failure mindset, more so in the era we're in, where the things that interest the generation at hand have no bearing on what we know.
Oh, yes.
People are making lives, their professional lives as food designers.
A photographer.
Yeah.
Photography. Musicians.
Yeah.
And you tell your son oil and gas.
And then you come and you
Yeah.
are saying engineer, lawyer. No, 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 no. They are not interested in that accounting firm
Fantastic.
you built all your life. So, what then should be the essence of this thing I've done for 27 years? If my children, not one of the four, decides they want to follow, and quite frankly, I'm not putting them under that pressure because I love the way their lives are going. Where I know that this has been worth something is that when I step aside, either voluntarily or by death, which is a given, my company can continue to run. It can hire a competent CEO, competent management, and continue to run. That's continuity. Take the biggest multinational you know. The reason they're still here is that the owners of the business are not the ones running it necessarily. They may keep some shareholding, and this is where I believe in legacy. I believe in posterity. So I take my business and I say that I want this company to be here in 100 years' time. Perhaps my family might own 5% so that there is generational wealth that is flowing. But if it is for me to burden my children with, I've been working here for 27 years, come and take over, that is not succession.
Wow.
Fantastic.
I'm
Just
totally.
short of words.
I'm in
schooled.
awe, honestly.
I'm schooled.
And let me now take you. I want to take your mind a little away from talking about businesses. I want you to focus on the girl child. As a woman, I am totally amazed at the comportment, the way your mind is put together. And I want you to talk about the education of the girl child in the present time. Because before, a lot of people will say that, okay, our girl children, they are a bit, that was the past mentality, substandard to men, that their minds are not wholesome. But now we're seeing women coming to the fore. What more do you think we can do to encourage the next girl generation to continue to take their place? Because I know if you were to exist like 40 years ago, starting out, you probably will not even have an opportunity for an education. But now our girls are having education, but they need to be able to be more assertive, take their space, and not be timid or shy. So how do we walk that path for our girl children?
So I have an interesting perspective on this, and that this is a conversation for men. There is nothing wrong with the girl child. The girl child is brilliant, she's capable, she's competent, but she's growing up in a society that has the potential to constrain her unless an enabling environment is created, and she cannot create it. In a society that is dominated by men, and which I always say, when I make that statement, it's not a negative statement. It's just the way the civilization evolved. But civilization has moved on, right?
Yeah.
Now you have a situation where you're seeing women as presidents, as ministers, as all sorts of things, high-flying entrepreneurs in the educational sector, in the sciences. And we can see that as human beings, women have the potential to deliver exceptional value. What is the constraint? It is that there are some men and some women who don't feel that this is, you hear things like, oh, if she's successful, her home will be scattered. If she's successful, nobody will marry her. And it makes no sense. So I like to challenge men, not women, because women are ready, willing, able, I promise you. And this is not because we are men or we are women. It's because God breathed on men and women. So we are all supposed to fulfill purpose on this earth. But I like to challenge the men and say, let me ask you, do you have a daughter? You're spending all your money to train her. If you can afford it, you send her to the top schools in the world. What do you want for her? Do you want her to be brought into a society where she is worthy to be made the next CEO, but because she's a woman, a group of people sit back and say no? Is that what you want for her? I doubt it, because you're investing this much in her. If that's what you want for your own daughter, why can't you want it for the next woman? And why can't you be part of changing that narrative? I like to speak to men because they need to understand that the difficulty of being a woman in today's world, they have a role to play. And that's why I like the UN's He for She program. Because being a woman now is hard. You are worried. I am more. I have today is my daughter's 21st birthday, by the way. That's she's
Happy birthday.
she's my only daughter out of 4 children.
Wow.
And I say that right from when she was younger, even into her more adult years, that I find I'm more worried when she wants to go somewhere by herself than I am for my sons. Why would that be? It's because I'm worried that she will bump into the wrong men. But if she would bump into men that see her and see their daughter, and see their sister, and see their mother, perhaps I wouldn't be worried.
Well said.
So if you are in an office and you are part of a conversation where they say, no, na woman, no, what do you do? Keeping quiet is a challenge. And so I want to encourage the men that understand that they want to speak up for their daughters to speak up. If you can't speak up for the next woman, whether it's your own daughter or your granddaughter, this is what is waiting for them, and it makes no sense. You can't fly with one wing. It's not the design. So no, Lolo, I don't want to talk to the ladies. I think we're ready. I think we're able. And no, it is not true that when we succeed, we break up our homes.
Yeah.
A woman whose home will break up anyway. Yeah. And when you do the dimensioning of what created the breakup, it's never about her. We are seeing women high flyers now. Men are stepping back. But let me tell you something. A woman is ready to submit, as they say, if she sees a man who values her and invests in her.
Absolutely.
There is nothing as wonderful as the covering of a husband that believes in you.
Sure.
But when you have constrained a woman and she rises, it's another conversation.
Altogether.
Yeah?
Sure.
I just think we need to just realize that this world needs both of us. And look at the inequities in the system, and both of us have conversations with ourselves. Yes, women, we don't want you to succeed and become terrorists or any such things. We don't want that, but we don't even see that much, I promise you. We don't. We really don't. We really don't. But I want to call my brothers. I have 3 sons, and I say to my sons, and this is the last thing I will say. I have 3 sons. I say to them, do you see me? I work. I have 4 of you. I don't joke with you. I don't joke with your father. I'm a minister of the gospel. I'm a speaker. I'm a writer. I'm this, I'm that, I'm this. I'm busy. But when it comes to my family, I don't play. And we have a great family life. So my sons, under my watch, you will not marry somebody's daughter and tell her she can be less, that she will be less than she has potential to be.
Hey. Whoa!
That's the applause.
I have
Under
it.
my watch.
That's the applause.
My mind is
That's the
totally
applause.
energized, and I wish that this conversation will, reach to more ears. I hope this particular edition is something that I want it played in schools for boys and girls to hear, because I want to believe that some of our foundation need to be worked on.
Yes.
I like the way you talked about your boys. I have 3 boys myself, and I'm training them to be better, wholesome people that can see their sister, see me, and typify their lives after what we do. Very, 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 very wonderful thoughts.
Fantastic. I'm just short of words. I'm highly schooled here. I'm just feeling that you should just form the banner of this show, and then your face and all that you said just, written in tabular forms and just, shown on the show there. I'd like you to speak to...
I have to interrupt you. We'll go on a quick break and return after a word from our sponsors. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Well, I wish you guys can be part of our conversation behind closed door, because I think what I'm taking away from what you have shared thus far is that, the boys and the men should be trained in a way that their character will not be questionable by man and by all of us. And I think that's part of the challenges that we are still facing till date. Hence the reason why fingers are being pointed to the women. Marsha, let me allow you to take the floor.
Yes, I do hope that Kike would bring you back here someday. I'm not sure we've repeated guests, but this is my first nominee. First nominee. I want to nominate you to be back here. I'd like you to speak to the fact that, so like I said earlier, I'm in several businesses with my wife, and we've had scenarios where I'd feel, okay, she might not be getting it wrong. Maybe in the meeting, 1 or 2 things she might not be getting right. And I would be questioning myself or searching for the approach, the way, the manner to approach her, not to offend her. Because I do know that ladies sometimes would have this your spouse, you shouldn't have, said I'm wrong in this manner or said I'm wrong in that manner. One typical example, which I'm sure many ladies would agree with me, a husband teaching the wife how to drive. You would always have complaints from the wife saying, the woman would always say, don't talk to me like this, don't shout on me like this, let me go this way. I've had that testimony, and many men would attest to that, But when you have a driver tutor, a driving tutor, querying her and teaching her, she would hardly talk back at the man. So there's that spousal understanding and limitation for you to address your wife from the man to the woman, knowing that she might not take it, professionally or lightly.
Yeah.
Speak to that.
So I'll speak to that first by saying to you that this is not about man or woman. That example you gave about driving, every woman on this table can give you our own example, which is that turn left is take left. No, I know where I'm going.
Exactly.
And every time we end up 3 hours on the road because you were trying to prove the point. And it's about that it is the woman. So we get into this competitive space, and it's very dangerous territory for any marriage. You really need to get past it. But to speak specifically to that, I talked about earlier this issue of professionalism in your work conduct. Professionalism is also about how you speak to each other. All right? So if the person you wanted to correct in the meeting was not your wife, how would you talk? If your wife, because she's your wife, you must be sensitive to that. You can't just cut her off mid-sentence. And then how you cut her off, there's something you might say that makes it sound like you've literally just called her stupid. So that's the sensitivity, but it's the same sensitivity you need to apply to any profession. Look, the workplace communication styles are critical. I don't understand places where the bosses tell people stupid, idiot, fool. I can't understand that. There is a way we talk in the office. It's respectful, it's honoring, it's acknowledging that, you know what, you may not be getting this right, but I recognize you as a professional, just that this may not be your core space. Within my organization, for instance, I'll use that practical example. So my husband is core operations. When it comes to that, that's his space. And when we start talking technical, I can talk to a certain level. There's an argument that gets to a point, and then when he says, no, I think you're missing something here, I'm like, okay, let me hear about this. But when we get to some other things, you're talking legal, you're talking commercial, you're talking strategy. Come on. That's my element. So if I'm saying something and he doesn't agree, it's actually up to me to now say, okay, yes, I hear you. However, I want you to pay attention to this. Then again is the beauty of this whole thing I've been saying about structure. You and your spouse cannot be the whole company. Where's your management team? Even if it's 2 people. And do you empower them to speak? Because if you empower them, there's nothing that annoys me more like yes, ma. I can't stand it. I can't be paying you the kind of money I pay for you to agree with everything I say. There's something is wrong.
Fantastic.
So, and then for me to be paying you to speak and I refuse to let you speak, there's a problem. What does this mean for you as a spouse? If you are the one trying to correct your wife and you have, let's say, 2 managers, and you ask them, what are your own thoughts? And they don't agree with you. Sir, back down.
Yes.
Don't be the man. Madam, back down. Don't prove the point. Again, I say, what is the win for the business? It's not always easy, but I think when we keep reinforcing this thing to ourselves to say, in the office, there are literally many people that don't know my husband and I work, that we're spouses, because we can go for meetings and just wear separate hats. And I'm not saying you don't argue, because I promise you that if you are looking for what's in the interest of the business, everybody must bring their arguments fully to the table. And then let's convince each other what is the right path for the business.
All right, many thanks for that submission, Ma. I think this might be our last question because of time, because we are going to discuss what affects us all, and I hope my producer is on board, because we are changing the trending story. But this is my last question to you: that only 43% of Nigerian family businesses have the values or the mission of the company well written out. Many at times, we see employees, trying to derail from the mission and the vision that they've actually documented. So the question is that in terms of spouse businesses, how are visions and missions entrenched in how to carry the business forward? Yeah.
Okay, excellent question. You know that dual vision brings division. So which means that you have to be seeing the same thing. This is in any business, much less when you're husband and wife. If you can't see the same thing, there is a problem. How then do you see the same thing? Because you see, when you start the business, usually you're on the same page. But as the business begins to grow and other opportunities begin to come forth, chances are one person has a view about the direction to go or not go. And you have to be able to agree it. So there is always a place for you as a spouse that work together to take time and have mini strategy sessions with yourself. And then with your team. And just sort of challenge the direction of the business. Now, where one person perhaps, I mean, there have been cases where, okay, my husband thinks we should go into this sector and I feel, I don't think so. Don't just say, I don't think so. This is business. Go and get your data. Thank you. Especially for women, I dare say. Women are very intuitive. And so many times we just know. But guess what? The men like data. They like facts. Yeah. And in business, facts can help to determine direction. So yes, you just know that this thing is not for us. You just have a feeling. Go and do the work and come and present your argument and say for this reason. Because you have to come back to the table. And then in terms of your original mission and vision, you know, the world we're in is almost in a state of constant flux right now. You can't just hold on to this is what we said we would do.
That's very dynamic.
Yeah, and COVID taught us that. The word, the whole of 2020, all we heard was pivot, 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 pivot. It became sort of an annoying cliche, but that's the reality of life. That you get to a point where, based on who you have both become, based on the journey, based on the industry and economy, so many things, you may have to shift. One person can't determine that shift. If you see it, then you have the responsibility to bring your spouse on board. And then you have the responsibility to accept any pushback they may have and bank it. Because you never know, that pushback may be what will save you if you push forward with, you know, the course of action. Important to see the same thing.
All right, many thanks for all you've shared with us thus far. It's so edifying to have such a personality on our show today. And I think that they've been telling me we need to round up time, we need to round up time, we need to, I think this is the first time we might be able to, you know, record our trending story outside while we're live. On this note, to say thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing part of your lunchtime with us. Despite today being your daughter's birthday, we're so grateful for that. No, let me quickly give you the floor so we can round up.
Are we taking the
we're going.
Okay, we're good. Thank you so much. I just think this conversation that we've had today is it's educating my own mind or re-educating me or putting me on some other level mentally. I'm hoping and praying that we'll have more conversations like this because a lot of more women need to hear and see the stability that a woman can have mentally.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. 30 seconds. 30
All right,
seconds.
I want to say, Kike, thanks for the Salah meat you brought to us. Thank you very much. That's my submission, guys. We'll have to go on this show. Thank you, Audrey, for coming.
Thank you so much for being with us. Please watch out on our social handles because we'll be sharing with you our trending stories for today. Apologies that you couldn't listen to us live. All right, this is where we say goodbye and bye for now.